You want small boats or guns? I'm your guy, but that's not this.
But it's there and it should be in the module. Um, and that's why I love these two-seater aircraft, because you have the dialogue. If you're in a single-seater aircraft, you're flying by yourself, and you have to make up these stories on your own as the player. And I mean, as players, we're good at that, right? I mean, we're good at it's like reading a book. The images are created in your head, and the story unfolds, and your brain is painting the landscape that the author is describing on the pages as you're reading down the letters. And the same is like when you fly in a jet. Yeah, I mean, you role play as a fighter pilot, and so you role play your own history in that. But it's so much more fun when you have two guys in there and they can bicker and banter and also support each other and develop a relationship with them. I mean, as funny as it sounds, I mean, it's an AI program. You're developing a relationship, but you're placing. It's like a placeholder for a human friend that you would have had if you would have been in that profession. And all the things these guys experience in the locker room and on the way from the, briefing room to the aircraft and back. And we have to put that into the cockpit, of course. I mean, a lot of the things they would have going on between themselves probably would not take place in the cockpit because, whether it's sterile cockpit conditions or it's just head in the mission and be focused and be a professional, which they all were, of course, otherwise they wouldn't have made it. But at the same time, bringing a bit of that into the cockpit is just fun, and it's just great to kind of share that with the community and share that with people who never served or never experienced this kind of brotherhood or bonding or whatever you will call it, or a culture community that these guys had. And so to me, the A6 is very close, and I'm really, really looking forward to kind of bringing that whole Flight of the Intruder, how you'd say, vibes into the simulator. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on about that. For what it's worth, I find myself talking back to Jester, not necessarily like literally either in my head or just like, so you guys have sort of nailed that. And Kirk, I think I know for me, at least, the thing I miss about my military service the most is the camaraderie. It's the people, it's the environment you worked with. So I appreciate, Iron Mike, Painter, Dominic, the things you guys have done to bring even just a little bit of that back, right? Jester's never going to be the guy you went out and had beers with and, chased girls with in a Liberty port or something, or did something really stupid and lived through it. And we don't need to necessarily tell, higher authority that we lived through that or whatever. But, just that little bit just really helps it. So with that said, I do want to be a good steward of everyone's time. I'm going to sort of go around the horn, see if anyone has a final thought they want to give. And I will say, after we're done, Vulture, if you want to talk, I'd love to talk about maybe bringing some of those stories to life and talking about your experiences, because I can only imagine in that era, in that time frame, there's probably some great ones. So with that in mind, Iron Mike, I'll give you the mic again. Any closing thoughts?
No, I just want to thank you all. First of all, my guys, for coming along and being here. I mean, they're the ones who really put all of those loose words that we just mentioned into code, into a language that brings it onto a screen. I mean, and that's an incredible ability that I admire you all for, and I'm very, very proud of. But also I want to thank, of course, you all for having us as guests and the community at large, to just be with us and give us the support and buy our modules. That gives us the ability to make these modules, as shallow as that sounds, but it's much more than that. It's all the feedback from the community. It's all the tie-ins that come, the there's so many ideas in our aircraft that are also community ideas. I mean that everybody who has, if you have a valid point, you have advocacy in our modules. I just want to make that very clear. If it's nonsense or if it's just like, but my pet peeve, and why don't you do it just the way I like it? Well, it's more difficult to justify. I mean, honestly, I would like to fulfill every of your wishes, of all of you out there. But of course, there needs to be some kind of choice and some kind of prioritization. But anyone who has a valid point will always be listened to and will always have advocacy in our aircraft. And that's why we always like to say that our aircraft are developed alongside with the community and evolve after release really with the community. And that's what I'm extremely grateful for. I want to thank you all. And last but not least, I want to thank Kirk because, as our main F4 SME, without you, Kirk, none of this would have been possible to that level it was. Also for sticking around with us way past release. I mean, you're part of HeatBlur as much as anybody else, and it means the world to us to have you with us. And every story you told, is brought you made more memories to us. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing that heart with us.
Painter, we didn't get to talk as much as maybe we would like. There's just so much in this module. I will say some of the stuff you have provided to the F4 module, if without your work, I probably would be on a third or fourth headset, having been thrown against the wall out of your frustration, right? Try to, like Iron Mike mentioned earlier, the Bondman calculator. So I'm sorry we didn't get to more of that, but any closing thoughts from you?
Oh, don't worry, that's totally fine. The whole aerodynamic stuff is more on Dom's table. So, yeah. But, first of all, thanks for having us. That's always great to maybe provide more insight for the community and all that stuff and talk about that. And, of course, thanks, Vulture. I'm really happy to have you at HeatBlur, because honestly, I always love when you tell those little stories, and that's always a highlight for me in my day. That's really amazing. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Dom?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. But of
course.
We can talk about the F4 and similar stuff. Also, thank you guys who are watching this. Thank you for your support. For any feedback you post on the forums, everything is very valuable to us, and also helps us a lot. And I would say that we actually make these planes together with you, together with the community, because we're doing this for you. And also want to invite you, if you want, to check out the MSFS F4 once it's out, because in my opinion it will be a nice experience to fly the exactly same flight model in the scenery of the whole world scenery that MSFS provides. So we're no more limitation to the exact maps like in this
nice.
Year. Of course. Yeah.
Awesome. And then last but not least, Vulture.
I just want to say thanks for this opportunity. It's always fun, and it's nice to talk to you again, Myron, Mike, and Payne and Dominic. I'm always here. If you guys got any questions about anything about this module, or even I could probably lie about the A6 if I needed to, about basic airplanes. But I love doing this. My wife laughs because I did, like I said, I did simulators for a career for 20 some odd years, and then got out of that and immediately got into doing working for you clowns. So it's just I can't get it out of my blood. But I like it. And the funny thing is, like, it keeps me safe when I fly real airplanes because I scare myself in the sim, and so I fly a little less stupidly when I'm flying real airplanes. And Scott, appreciate the chance to talk. And yeah, I'll hang around if you want to talk about. I could tell a bunch of lies about airplanes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, thank you to all your guys. Thank you for your time, for your effort on the module. Sunshine had to jump for another commitment, so my apologies that he didn't get a chance to say goodbye. But for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next 2 weeks with more great content, and I appreciate everyone staying tuned to Authentic. I've marked us out there, but I'm still recording for any just little cats and dogs. I have one really super specific question that may be the dumbest question on earth. When I'm flying the F-4, there's that little lamp on the side is it just me, or should that thing be like on a gooseneck so I can see my mission clock? Like, am I losing my mind here? Or I was talking to Rob about that. He goes, you're going to have to ask him, because I don't know, because I find myself like convoluting my body to look down, and because it's right there at the top where I want to see it. What's in the real aircraft? Was that on a gooseneck, or what was going on there?
Well, there's a certain SME who's been complaining about that for probably about 2.5 years. My theory, and this is as a SME, is that they scanned a jet that was in a museum, and it's a ex-German jet, is
Right.
my guess, or maybe, yeah, I think it's German because of the seats. Although it's not an
It's
F4 seat,
definitely
I'm not sure.
it's an F4F. Yeah.
F4F. Okay, so it is
It's
an
the one that was
F4F.
delivered to the Košice Museum by the German
Gotcha.
president in 2004.
So it looked like, I thought it was an F because it's a pseudo E. And the seat is the giveaway because it's still not the correct Martin Baker set of straps for an Air Force Martin Baker.
We're
It's
working
German
on
straps. And since it's a museum jet, you know how museums get the jets. A unit gets told, give us a jet, and the unit finds the jet that's in the back of the hangar, finds any panels they need to replace and bolts them on and ships them off to the museum. So it's not the most pristine jet, like a line jet. So it's a little rougher than most. It's rougher than any Air Force jet I ever flew in. It was. Even the old beat-up F-4s that we had in training that were actual Vietnam vets and had kill markings on them. They didn't get quite that beat up because the Air Force can afford to replace things that are broken. I think the Luftwaffe couldn't. So it's a little more duct taped and band-aided together. Other than that, it definitely has atmosphere. And I understand the kids like that. I'm just holding out that maybe for the Arnie jets, since they were essentially brand new and never got more than 4 or 5 years old when they were in use in the Air Force, maybe we can get a nice pristine cockpit for the Air N jets, because that would be really nice as a difference from because literally no Air N 101 jet ever got that beat up. We got them, brand new when I was in the Philippines, and they were, just off the factory floor. They were gorgeous. Anyway,
Nice.
So that's the story behind that. And there's other little things you can go, oh, this jet's really had a rough life. That crew chief, I would have talked to him about some of the things in that jet.
Yeah. Well, so A, thank you for the answer, and B, but I guess that's a testament to how well you modeled what you had, right? So
Yeah.
it is faithful to what you guys had. So cool.
Yeah, there's also a deliberate decision behind that, because a lot of it will serve for Navy is different, right? I mean, the Air Force and Navy is a lot because the Navy gives you salt and corrosion. And the F-14, for example, which is far more beat up than the F-4, those Navy guys are, that's spot on. And you can see, and the crew was there, and we know that for a fact. The paint would chip off, they wouldn't unpaint that, and then they would just paint over.
Right.
And then you would see it chip it off in layers and layers and layers. And if you capture that, these little chips and paints and layers and scratches, they tell a history of the guys who didn't fly the jet. The maintenance, the ground crew, the engineers who worked around them and whatnot, the plane captains and chiefs and so on. And so we always like to do jets that are a bit more worn, because of course, it's the same with Jester and the Rio Viso feedback as it is with that and the maintenance, because the maintenance will tell you, I would never allow the jet to leave my hangar like this. Funnily enough, the paradox comes into play that if you leave it a little bit less kind of, polished, you will think about these guys more than if it's the spit shine new factory clean thing. You know what I mean? It's a bit of like getting, in Slovene there's a word, you'd say you go with your right hand around your ass into the left pocket, kind of. And it's a complicated way, but at the same time, the achievement gives you the opposite of what that kind of says, that there was a maintenance who basically didn't take care of the aircraft that well, but at the same time, this is where these kind of things become visible, because suddenly you start reflecting about paint, you start reflecting about screws, you start reflecting about rust, and all those things also are a big part of an aircraft's life. As we know, in aviation, maintenance is far more important than in a car.
Oh yeah.
Things need to hold together and not break and stuff. But that's why we deliberately go a bit more into the dirty thing than Kirk would appreciate, for example. And
the atmosphere is
just
wonderful.
to add Kirk, we already removed so much dust that had been scanned with that because it's true, and another thing I'll tell you, I always had this dream of touching a fighter jet, right? Because I never touched them. Right? And the first opportunity I got for an F-4 was in Košice. And you know how you romanticize about that first kind of touch, right? And you imagine the metal and the feel of it. And the moment I laid hand on that jet, it was one of the most disgusting experiences I ever had. It felt cold. It was dusty as fuck, right? And then it had this kind of like almost sandpapered metal feel. So you would think like you could get some really thin stripe under your skin or something. If you'd pull your hand, it did not feel great at all. But that's also because it stands there in the hangar and it's just collecting dust and all that kind of stuff, But obviously we are aware that when we scan a museum jet, it needs to be made like a in-service jet again, so we have to remove a shit ton. But we also collect pictures, like in the F-14's case, we have a lot of pictures from in-service jet. And Bayer, for example, told us, man, sometimes it took not more than 2 to 4 weeks that they looked like that on active carrier duty, just because of the amount of water and thing. And the Navy also is very rough with those things. Like they didn't care. They walked with shoes over the cushions or whatever. There was no kind of like, let's be. No, it was Grumman Ironworks. Like boom, boom, boom. This crew needs to do it.
Part of what I used to do when I was in active duty, we would, several times we had to fly old jets to depot and trade them for jets just coming out of phase and fly them back. And the jets we were taking, to drop off were scratched up and banged up, and some things didn't work. In fact, some things the jets we took back were in really bad shape, but those were usually jets we got from like Egypt and swapped them out. They were horrible. But then they picked up the jet and they were essentially, brand new paint job. All the instruments were replaced, all the markings were fresh. It looked like a new jet. So in the Air Force, the turnaround time was a lot faster. And again, I understand the argument. But like I said, in the case of the DMAS, to be historically correct, remember those jets were retired with less than 10 years, 7 or 8 years of use, because they came in online about 83 and they retired them by 93. So maybe 10 years operational in the DMAS jets, maybe a little longer in the Guard. They weren't, flying that long before they got replaced. So they didn't have a chance to get us beat up. But again, that's, it's.
I'll tell you right away to so you're not disappointed later, it's very unlikely, Kirk, and the reason is very simple, because doing the textures for the entire cockpit, that's 2 years of full-time work. And it's just, it's both time-wise and financially not doable.
Okay, that's it. Just
you would have, it's not that we wouldn't love to do it. If we would be a big enough company and or the sim market wouldn't be so niche, right?
Yeah.
Those things would be absolutely no-brainers, right? Heck, I'd make you a different cockpit for every year, you said, or you could say the production year, and we would implement wear and tear also on a visual level, as we did with the instruments, that the longer you fly, the more you get, and then you can bring it to maintenance, and all of that would be possible. But it's so much work.
Well, you're going to have to fix some of the front seat, because you have to take off the bike pod thing. So maybe you can fix that light.
Which light is that specifically?
It's in the upper left corner. It's obviously been broken and fixed in the original model. So it's a little.
It looks like a cockpit spotlight on a gooseneck that sort of goes right down in front of the mission clock.
I know what light you mean.
Yeah.
I
You got to
also
redo
had
that core anyway because that whole all the paved tack stuff or paved spike cut stuff comes off on the air end jets,
Okay.
and it'd be a good time to clean up that particular little
Let's
irritant.
put it on the list then. But yeah, we'll see. Kirk. I mean, obviously, you'll be heavily involved in the process as well.
But I got to say, I was flying around yesterday on a mission. I think it's one of Seblo's one where you take off from a road strip in Germany and then fly around and land on the road strip again, and the atmosphere in that jet where you can't see through the front very good because the gun sight's a bit darker, and it was a hazy day, a lot of fog, not so much sunlight, and having to work around all the limitations of the F-4 cockpit was an absolute blast because it was just like the airplane. I mean, you just can't look out the window like in a modern jet. You got to work your way around the gun sight and the wiring and the things that aren't in the way, and I can't see this way, so I can move the airplane around and finally, and everything works. But it was nice. It's a lot of fun.
Tomcat
Awesome.
crews would, for example, they would carry a wrench with them so they could screw off the gun sight for landings, just so they could see better. Yeah. There was a thing. Or what they also
I'm
did. Here's a
surprised how
fun
many guys
story.
don't raise their seat when I talk to other guys online. A question about how do you land the F4? You can't see the runway. I say, you try just raising your seat until you can see the runway. Because if you're, I didn't know you could raise your seat. I can't see the gun sight. Well, you're not looking at the gun sight where you're in the pattern. For goodness sakes. Yeah.
That's funny.
Another
All right. Well,
thing
go ahead.
Another thing they did is at some point, the Rios, they started bringing handheld GPS devices because the Tomcat, the B and the A, they didn't have GPS. The BU is going to have it.
I believe it.
And
yeah.
and they stretched it on that. The Rio has a handrail where they can, grab during takeoff and landing. And that's where they would just kind of flatch it on. And there was this instance, pretty funny one in hindsight because nobody got really harmed. The Rio didn't secure it well enough, and so they caught a wire, and that thing, and what you need to know is the security pin for the pilot ejection seat. You can basically just reach like that from the Rio and flip, And so that GPS device got loose and shot forward and hit the firing pin of the ejection seat, and so they arrested, and the pilot got ejected.
Oh my.
Well, landed in the water. They rescued him, and he had minor injuries and some concussion stuff or whatever. Nothing bad, but still, I mean, imagine being that Rio, man. You're not living that.
Yeah. But now that reminds me, I know we're supposed to get the gun sight, the gun camera for the front seat in the F4 eventually, and that was one of the things on that little piece of hardware. The gun camera film canister was known for coming off during takeoff and landing in the front seater's lap or on his nuts normally, so it was rather painful. So that would be an interesting little Easter egg to stick in the F4. So if you took off and because part of your pre-flight, it literally says so, check that the dog bone or the canister is in and locked. So it doesn't come off during takeoff, because it will come off during takeoff and it goes right in your lap. So that would be a fun little thing to add to the jet, so if the guys don't touch it and make sure it's locked, it would come off and give them a really sudden pitch input when it hits their stick. But yeah,
that would be nice. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm sorry I have to bail, but
yeah, all good. Appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. This has been great. Kirk, I will reach out to you through Rob Grady because I'd love to talk to you about your F4 experiences. I mean, just right off the bat, I'd love to get you with an F4 Rio. I know Bio did F-14s, but like an F4 Rio, just because when you were talking about grabbing the stick between your knees when the pilot got to a high AOA, I'd love to hear a Navy Rio's. Like, he's probably so envious of the fact that you guys had that opportunity in an Air Force cockpit, whereas he's back there going, hope this guy doesn't do something dumb. So,
well, the whole story about the sticks in the back of F4s and how they end up in the back of all our two-seat jets now is, I think it's kind of interesting. And
okay.
If you look at earlier two-seat F4 Air Force fighters, they had a Rio with no stick in the back, F-98s or F-89s, F-94s, things like that. Their F-101Bs didn't have a stick in the back. But anyway, that's a whole long story.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we'll reach out to you. And guys, appreciate the time and really, truly appreciate your work. I really, really enjoy it. So appreciate everyone being here. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Likewise, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.